So almost the entire east shore of Lake Thune has a seawall between the road and the lake. And this thing extends for a long way. Plus it has these little overlooks positioned. There's several of them. I call them an overlook. I don't know what else to call it. And they typically have some trees and whatnot. So we need to get all this made up for our map. When I first started making keys, I found them baffling. I tried numerous times and simply could not get them to work properly. Either the top texture smeared badly at the corners, or end caps would have no texture at all. I still don't really have a good handle on exactly what a node does in a key, but I've made them without nodes and with nodes, and I think they're easier to position and easier to place and easier to set your elevations properly if you have a node in there. So what I have done here, and also a lot of keys have a wooden bump rail, if you will, and I made this so that it could be used for other applications, not just this specific key. So you can make up one and then retexture it and put different railings on it for different applications. The key is a very simple structure, basically just a box structure. They are typically 64 meters in length. I have made this one 6 meters in width and 27 meters deep. And I have divided it into 16 divisions. When you make your key, you want you can see the red line right here. You want the top of the key to be just above your 0 Y mark in your 3D application. So you think of your 0 plane as the ground, and you want that sticking up just a tiny bit above the ground. Now, there is nothing particularly interesting about making a key, but what is the unique thing about them is how you UV and how you texture them. That is what was always tripping me up. The thing that's unique about keys is that the texture is stretched across the face of it. So what I have done is I've textured these 4 polygons, and they span the entire width of the UV space. You have to run your texture all the way to the top and bottom edge. They scroll vertically, and if you ordinarily when we UV something, you leave a little space around the perimeter of the UV space. When you're texturing a key, you need to run it all the way to the edge. If you leave a gap at the top and bottom, like we typically would, then you're going to have that gap showing up as it scrolls across your key. So run your UV and your texture all the way to the edge. What I've done here is I've duplicated all of this on top of each other. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all in that same UV space right there. So all of that is UV'd to that point. What you're seeing right here is the end caps. That's this one, and the other one's at the other end. It's going to share the same texture as the face. This here then, same 4 units. That's the top surface. This is the curb and little detail areas at the upper corners, I made them span 2 spaces because I originally laid them out as 4 units in length as well, but the texture is so small you couldn't hardly see it. And these items over here are my railing. They're UV'd over here. Now, what you do, this is the vertex map, and what you do is you assign vertex paint to the items that you do not want the texture to scroll on. So your end cap and the railing, you don't want the texture to be able to scroll across it. Otherwise it's going to be all messed up. Every 3D software program is going to be different in how you create a vertex map. In Modo, under List, you select Other Maps. You want it to be a color vertex map. You create the color map, then you go to Vertex Map, Color Tool, and then you set your color to magenta, which is 255, 0255, or in this case they're calling it 101. Now that map goes with you don't have to save out a separate map. It will go with the mesh when you export it. This is the node, and it couldn't be more simple. It's just a section. The way I make the node is I just take a section of the key and just isolate that, duplicate it, and then you have that piece. And typically the nodes that you see, they generally have this facing inward, so I just made mine the same. But that should be positioned so that it lines up inside your... Now I got tired of trying to figure out the textures on the node, and these are the key and the node is asymmetric because the curb on either side is different. And I noticed that when I would lay the keys that this thing would flip side for side, end for end as you laid it out. So I just set this up with an alpha and texture this completely black so that it's invisible. So I left my end plates on here. I texture them on the key itself and just make the node invisible, and it's worked out perfectly. I take the key that I just made. Now what I'm talking about here is making our LOD, or the low res version of it. I take the same key, duplicate it, and then I just go in and remove any lines that I don't need. So I cut down my divisions in half so that I have 8. All of the details on these curbs, I merged the vertices along the length of these on both sides. I could go even further, I'm sure, and reduce the polygons further by getting rid of all of this. I tend to be a little lazy when it comes to making LOD meshes, so I'm sure that others' meshes are better optimized than mine. But this is 152 polygons, so that's not very many. I place this skirt down here on the keys because every key that I looked at that someone else has made or was they all have this skirt. I'm assuming that triggers the water side of the key. I don't know that to be the case, but my guess is that's what that is. And I put this line right here, I put that in as my projected water line. This is going to be where the ground occurs. I export these and I use the Autodesk FBX 2015 Legacy setting, because I think I tried the 2000, the later one, before and it didn't work out too good. But you export your files, you need both the high-res version and the low-res or the LOD version to your add-ons import folder. And just name it whatever you want to name it. Both the high-res and the low-res version. The low-res version always has to have the exact same name, then underscore LOD. Here's the texture for the key. Again, you run your texture all the way to the edges so that they can scroll. And then this is the texture again for the railing. This is for the underground hidden portion. I go ahead and texture it just so that if it gets uncovered or whatever, that it at least looks halfway decent. The luminance or brightness of the image, right here under my cursor, see right there, it's under LAB in the upper right hand corner, that's 19. One thing I do, you can see here on the side, I've made it brighter, up around between 28 and 30, 33. These side pieces, you need to make them a little bit brighter because they will get, things that face upward in the game need to be made really dark. The sky reflection on them will make them way too bright if you don't darken them quite a bit. So on side pieces I make them a bit brighter so that they don't get so drastically dark when they're in shadow. Once we're in the asset editor, you want to select road because it's a network. Now basically all you're doing here, and I want for a key, I want this man on the horse, which is parks, plazas, and wildlife. Basically what you're doing here is selecting call it a template, because you're just, now this is the standard key that comes with the game. I'm just loading that as a template that brings that in with the coding and whatever that makes the thing work. We go to properties. We don't really need to do anything with properties just yet, but we will be changing those. What we want to do is go to segments, opens up this second window. Then here under model you click here, and when you saved the mesh to the import folder, this is it right here. You select that, it'll preview it. So anyway, you can preview this. Sometimes the scale will be more than one. I've only seen that one time, but it's always a good idea to look there and make sure that you're set for that. And if you've got fairly large textures, this select button can take a moment to energize, so sometimes you just have to wait for a second. So this fence break 26 meter gap, so the last one I put in there is for one of the fence gap meshes that I put in there. Then we'll go to our node, do the same thing again. Load our node. And it's going to disappear because, remember, I painted it with a black alpha, so it's invisible. And we can draw our key out. Now I'm going to put a diagonal on here just to illustrate some things. These properties don't work exactly like I originally thought they would. You see the gap that's being created here, the blue line, the gap that's between here. Alright, we can get rid of that by unchecking clip terrain. See how that filled in? You know, you can leave create ruining, you don't really need it. I suppose we can put it looks, well, yeah, let's do, because see, look there, it's getting rid of that grass. Right here with create ruining, if it's checked, there's no grass, you uncheck it, you're getting the grass through there. So we want to not have grass growing up through there. I usually set these construction costs to 0 and maintenance cost to 0. Since I'm putting these in the map, I don't know if it starts if someone were to subscribe to the map, whether that starts charging them immediately or not, I don't know, but I just zero them out. No reason for that. All the rest of these things we can leave alone. Now, the pavement width, pavement is sidewalk. In European terms. Here in the United States we think of pavement as just the pavement of the road. But pavement in Europe apparently refers to what we call sidewalks. So we don't have it, so I'm just going to make that 0. Don't have any pavement. And the half width, and I only figured this out just through experimentation, my key is 6 meters in width, so I always figured I should set that half width to 3. But I have not found that to be the case at all. What that does in the case of keys is it just really changes the diameter of your corner. So you can see as I change that, it changes this. So depending on how tight you want your corner, the tighter you make that corner, the more it's going to distort your texture in that corner. If you set that out quite far, you're not getting hardly any distortion at all. Again, the fence is missing here because this is the fence gap version that I put in here. So you can just set that, I had that set to like 12 and 0. All the rest of those are fine. For lanes, we can add a lane for people to walk on. So here it says none, none, click it. And now for position, I put a dummy item on here. Let's add a prop. Go to new prop. Here, let's just grab this bollard and bring that in. Now, you see the bollard. I'm not sure how the heck you're supposed to do this way. The window's completely filled up. But here you can see the bollard right here. And we're at 0, 0. So here under position, this apparently is X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to go here to -1. So you see where it positions it at -1. And if I go to +1, goes, so I'm assuming that's 1 meter right and left of center line. And this is probably vertical. Yep. So you use those X, Y, and Z coordinates to set your position. And I use that just to figure out, because I'm just wanting to create walking lanes here. But that tells me that I can make one lane at a +1 position and one lane at a -1 position. So you can set, lane property 1 with 2 speed limit, I'll say 15, and then here lane type pedestrian, vehicle type bicycle. And then we don't need that prop in there. And you can see here now that it's lane 1 bicycle, and then you can add another one, go in the other direction, and do the same thing, just going in the opposite direction. Then when you're finished with everything that you're doing there, you can save your asset. Oh, I forgot one thing to show you here. If you click this button, you can take snapshots. You just click that and it'll take pictures of your image. And then when you save your asset out, and here you save it, you need to, why they do this I have no idea, but you need to put your name in twice for the item, here and here. Make sure they're exactly the same. If you have made up custom thumbnails and whatnot, I don't know, this asset tooltip, I typically put that in. And then here, click the folder icon, and here's your snapshot, thumbnail, and tooltip. And what you want to do is replace those with a custom snapshot, thumbnail, and tooltip that you have made. And there are plenty of instructions online for how to make those. You can make the whole process of laying down the key and the road so much easier and far more accurate by employing a couple of tools and assets. Use the parallel road tool and the terraforming network extended pack. To lay the key, begin by making sure the ground is at the elevation you want. My sea level is set to 50 meters, so I'm setting the shoreline to 51.5 meters. Don't worry about the water flooding in, it will dissipate. Use the parallel road tool, load all 3 assets The road in this case is the same as selected. The terraforming network will hold down the ground or seabed on the water side. If you don't use it, you'll get ugly ground spikes pushing up into the wall. Just experiment with various settings. Use Electric's reverse segment tool to flip segments back out that have flipped. Use Move It to correct elevation and alignment errors. With Move It, you can use page up, page down for vertical adjustments, and the arrow keys for lateral adjustments. In both cases, Shift will constrain the movements to 1 meter increments, and Alt will produce much finer adjustment. Then be sure to clean up and tidy up any disruptions to your seabed floor. Smooth out the area and create a nice transition from your bank into the deeper water. Well, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.